Welcome to the Remarkable Retail Podcast, Season 6, Episode 21, presented by Market Dial. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis.
Well, Steve, things really connect for us in this episode as we sit down with Martin Urrutia, Global Head of Retail Experience and Innovation, the LEGO Group.
Yeah, it was such a... we did this back in the World Retail Congress, I guess, 5 weeks ago or something?
Mm-hmm,
It seems like forever, but it was such a fun interview. He's such an interesting guy. But, of course, everybody knows LEGO, and it's a fun brand. But it was so great to just really get into the innovation creative process there. So I think our listeners will really enjoy it and learn a lot from it. Hey, speaking of events, nice segue, huh? Weren't you just this past week at Canada's big event, the Store Conference? How was that?
That's right. Store was the big kahuna, as I call it here. It's kind of like, as you imagine, like in the NRF show up north. And it was great. Lots of people saw tons of our fellow Rethink Retail influencers. And I was on stage twice, once on the main stage with Loblaws, talking about Alfredo Tam, talking about retail media networks, which is, of course, a big buzz. And many of the grocers here are looking very closely, the retailers. And then second, a bracing discussion about shopping centers, future of shopping centers. So me and a bunch of other talking heads, so to speak, talking about shopping centers. And for big news, for the first time, I actually met in person and got a picture with him from Salesforce, Rob Garf. So we've been...
Ooh, a Garfy.
We never met him in person, and he's taller in person, actually. And so there was a real treat and got to chit and chat with him. So lots of people from the industry, and it was a great show. So thanks for asking. All right, well, let's piece together the retail news of the week. So there's some good news just came into our inbox from some economic good news around jobs, but there's all kinds of, as these things go, there's some up, downs, and sideways. What do you think, or what do you make of the latest economic news?
Yeah, just really quickly, because we haven't talked broadly about macro stuff in a bit. We got the U.S. jobs report, and it's so interesting just how the economy just keeps producing a lot of new jobs. The unemployment rate did tick up a bit, but it's still at 3.7%, which is, almost unheard of in the last few decades.
What is as an economist you would call that? There's always frictional unemployment, even in full, like it never gets to zero, right? People are always moving around, but 3% it's like nothing, literally, but from an economist point of view, right?
Yeah, I think it's terrific, and now I think the thing that folks will be talking about for the next week or so is what the Federal Reserve here is going to do, as well as just generally. I know Bank of Canada and in the UK, there's a lot of conversations about where interest rates are going to go. So we'll see what happens there. I think it's kind of a mixed bag right now. Some people saying they're going to pause just to kind of see how things are playing out. Others are saying, well, this job report's pretty strong. Some inflation is moderating. Food inflation is actually starting to decelerate quite a lot. Gas prices have been, much more moderate. So there's some positive picture in terms of inflation. And then, you got kind of these storm clouds on the horizon. Wages are not keeping pace with inflation, even though the job market is strong. Consumer debt's starting to go up. Think about it. Earlier last week, we got a report about U.S. consumer confidence, which dropped to a 6-month low. This new debt deal that we just got here in the States, I think it's still a little bit uncertain, but student loan debt had been paused. That's going to restart, I think, in September. So, there's just a lot of things that are putting pressure on lower and middle income folks, which sort of gets to the next topic I just wanted to mention. Just kind of pulling this together, I kind of feel like, and I hate to just keep, there's like the great acceleration, the great moderation, there's all these things, but I feel like we're in this era of this great reprioritization because so much of what we see, and we'll talk about earnings briefly in a second, but I think so much of what we see in terms of retailers' results and at least their near-term strategies has to do with these shifts in spending and, so much more money going to essentials. And this trading down phenomenon, even folks like Walmart reporting the growth in consumers that make more than $100,000 a year. We've started to see some reports about even the luxury market, which had been pretty strong, and a lot of people think is immune from these forces, which I know from my Neiman Marcus experience is not true. But and the thing with luxury, I think, just quickly, people don't understand is yes, there's sort of the uber luxury customer and the uber luxury segment, but then there's what I'd call just sort of the working affluent, and these people have very, very nice incomes, but they're not so fabulously wealthy that when they start to get squeezed, they don't start to cut things. And things like luxury products are pretty easy to cut. So I think it's still a lot of churn. It's one of the reasons why we kind of headline this season as when the tide goes out, because I think we're seeing the tide continuing to go out.
Thinking back to Barcelona, where Scott Galloway, he said, hey, it's supposed to be the recession next month. We've heard that for the past 18 months. So he was feeling like, this negative news kind of feeds into negative news. But there's, what would you describe it as? There's trailing indicators and leading indicators, right? And I think some of the leading indicators are pointing to more economic chop than less.
I think for sure, the consumer has shown more resiliency than many people have thought, myself included. And the fact that we've got largely full employment is definitely helpful to consumers being able to spend. But we're still kind of rolling off, as we've talked about before, we're into this post-COVID period where you don't have the stimulus payments and people spend a lot of money on big ticket stuff.
I think the thing that, and maybe we'll do, I think I've mentioned this before, I'd love to get an urban planning type person on. I was reading a recent study that said Americans have saved 60 million hours of commuting time in 2022. Yeah. And that's money too, right? So I don't think we're taking that into account as much as we should. I'm not sure anyone quite knows how, but I think a lot of people are saving a lot of money, like real cash that is buoying that is keeping the economy a little more buoyant than we might have.
Nice workaround.
Before I hurt myself. All right, let's shift gears into earnings. Vancouver-based Canadian company, international powerhouse, Lululemon puts out results that are just knock the cover off the ball results. Talk about your impressions.
Yeah, well, what I was going to say, last week overall was kind of a downer for earnings. We'll talk about a few that were really disappointing. But once again, if you're a remarkable retailer that is not necessarily facing so much of the macroeconomic headwinds, you can put up some good numbers. So yeah, Lululemon, 24% sales growth. A lot of that was propped up by almost 80% year-over-year growth in China. Now, obviously, companies with big presence in China are starting to, they're comping against really weak numbers, so that's not totally shocking.
Yeah, but they also, stretch, so to speak, right?
Oh, I see what you did there. But their profit performance was outstanding. $290 million versus $190 million last year, which was a pretty good number by itself. Right. They raised their guidance. So, here's one of, maybe like 5% of the companies that are really reporting very strong results and being optimistic about the future. We also had a, not quite as powerful, but Chewy, the online pet supplies retailer, which we had previously had in kind of the wobbly unicorn corner, seems to be breaking out from that, at least the last couple of quarters. They had pretty nice sales growth, I think close to 15%. They did make a small profit. It's their second straight quarter. So, some good momentum there. Then you go from the good, the outstanding and the good to, a little less good with Dollar General. So Dollar General, it's interesting. A lot of these dollar stores, which of course have been this amazing growth category for a long time, are starting to show some weakness. They had, decent sales growth. Comps were kind of flattish, but overall sales were up almost 7%. But their operating profit is down, and they talked a lot about margin pressures and just decelerating sales in some categories. So maybe we're, even with all this trading down and value orientation, I don't know whether that's a function of just there's so many dollar stores that how much is left in the tank, so to speak. Yep. The other thing they said is they, I think we talked about this on the podcast last year sometime, is that they have this newer concept called Pop Shelf that they had opened a bunch of locations and were talking about opening quite a few more. They're still going to open, I think, 90 in the next year, but that's down quite a lot from what they originally thought. So there's definitely tapping the brakes a little bit. And then when we shift to the department store sector, Nordstrom, which I I'm not sure what's going on there.
Yeah, what did you describe it on social media? There's a few folks who did posts, and you just said it's demonstrably awful. I mean, there's no
it's a big sales decrease, a pretty sizable loss. I went back and looked at, because I think it's important to kind of benchmark some of these numbers to pre-COVID, and the revenue is essentially flat to 2019, which is better than some, including one we'll talk about in a second. Mm-hmm. But they've just really hit a wall. So, I do think some of this is caught up in the discretionary spending issue, people pulling back.
And they took a financial hit for their move to close down Canada, right? So there's a little bit of that in the numbers.
Yeah, there is, though. They guided down for the balance of the year in earnings, taking that out. So it's not a very optimistic picture. Then we get to Macy's, which I'm sure people are tired of hearing me pick on Macy's. I wrote an article about Macy's and Kohl's. Essentially, there was the idea of running to stand still, spending all this time talking about all these exciting strategy things. And similar to what we talked about on Kohl's last week, if you look at Macy's and you go back to 2019, their sales are down a lot. Their earnings are, down to flat. And so they also guided to not a very optimistic number going forward. So a lot of issues. And one thing I was just going to say briefly, and maybe we come back to this in a future episode, I think sometimes because of the way I talk about some of these retailers, I think we have to separate out what is a fundamental business design issue. What is it about their value proposition that is not remarkable and is not well fit to the market? Then there are these issues of, how well are they executing against their value proposition? And then there's just, kind of the macroeconomic conditions. So just to use the example of RH, which we talked about last week, RH, I think, has a remarkable value proposition. I have some questions as to how high is up in terms of its expansion potential, because it's, focused on a niche, essentially. They clearly have not executed well the last few weeks, and they're facing economic headwinds. I think that's a different thing than talking about Macy's, where I think their model is just fundamentally broken, as is the Kohl's model. So yes, they are being hurt by some economic headwinds. I certainly think Macy's and Kohl's could execute better. But the reason why I make such a big point of it is it feels so much to me like the way I felt at Sears 20 years ago, which is this model is broken. And we're doing, we're putting cosmetics on a short, stocky, domesticated animal.
And so, basically, no matter how well you execute, very smart people can execute. If the model's fundamentally broken or flawed, you're just going to continue to execute yourself into a brick wall.
Well, and I'll go out on a limb, and I'm sure this will come back to bite me, but I believe that because of the general issues in the moderate department store sector and the things that are currently in play for Macy's and Kohl's, I think it's going to be difficult for them to ever run a revenue increase again. Wow. Unless we have like Argentinian inflation or something. No. But I just think that, or, maybe they'll do something, promote so heavily or spend so much in marketing that they eke out a real sales increase in a quarter or something. But I think, nothing they're doing is really going to fundamentally cause them to gain relative market share. And if they can't gain relative market share, as well as do some other things, it's just a business that is, slowly liquidating, essentially. So I'm going to be a little bit provocative and put that out there. But end of rant.
No. All right. Well, very good. That's a wrap on news. And now, just before we talk to Martin from Lego, who's going to take us brick by brick through the retail innovation process at Lego, let's hear from our presenting sponsor. If you're a retailer hungry for a better way to gain useful insight on the impacts of your store layout, design, and strategic initiatives, you need to know Marketile. Marketile is an easy-to-use testing platform that emboldens great decisions, leading to reliable, scalable results. With Marketile, you can be confident in the outcome of your in-store pilot initiatives before rolling them out across your fleet. Validate your remarkable ideas with Marketile's in-store testing solution. The proof is in the testing. Learn more at Marketile.com. That's Marketile.com.
Well, Martin, thanks for joining us live from the World Retail Congress in Barcelona. How are you today?
Excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me and enjoying beautiful Barcelona, the little things that we can see.
Yeah.
A little bit of sunshine in the morning, sunset in the afternoon, but always exciting to be in beautiful Barcelona.
Yeah, and plenty of inspiring content as well, of course, from the event and catching up with people. Well, we're delighted to have you here. What we'd love just to start off with is just a little bit about who you are, your personal and professional journey, and the work you do at Lego, a brand that I think is probably known to just about everybody, but perhaps not.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Martin, Urrutia. Born and raised in Mexico, but been through different places. I will call myself a global citizen, love traveling, have lived in different places. When I finished my career, I studied industrial design, but I was always curious about marketing and curious about retail, and I discovered my passion, or confirmed my passion, that is retail. I love retail in any shape. And I'm growing. I was able to have different experiences, but now working as professional, I started my journey, and I think that's probably the best start that I could wish. Working on the agency side, I work with different global agencies and retail. And it was fantastic because the learning it's amazing. You know, every day a new project, a new challenge. Sometimes actually were the same challenges, just from a different company. And then moving forward, then I joined Lego 12 years ago. Had to move together with my family and 20 suitcases from Mexico City to Denmark. And since that time, we've been exploring and evolving our retail experiences.
That's neat. How did the Lego opportunity come up? Did they find you or you find them? Or
I think it was, we found each other, let me call it destiny. Destiny is something that, it is there to be. So telling you quickly the story, that is actually a good anecdote. I was watching a movie, not the best movie, and I was a little bit bored, and I was just browsing LinkedIn, and I received a message from somebody that asked me if I was interested in applying for the role. I remember telling my wife, put a pause to the movie. This could have implications. Are you ready to move with the kids to Denmark? And I immediately say, yes, we are. Can you go back and put play to the movie again? And literally 12, 15 weeks after that, we were moving with everyone to start a new life in Denmark.
Wow.
So it was a very interesting journey, but that's how it happened.
So as I mentioned, I think just about everybody probably has some knowledge of Lego as a product, maybe not so much as a global business. Could you just give us maybe a little bit of sort of fun facts about the company, the size, the breadth, kind of some of the key things that are going on there?
Sure. First of all, the Lego Group is it's a family-owned business. That is great. You know, we have a big commitment and belief from the owners. The ownership has been passed from generation to generation. Was established and founded in Denmark, in Billund, in 1932. So very soon, in a few years, we're going to reach our 100th anniversary. And from being a small toy company in Denmark, actually that started with wooden toys. Not many people know that. If you're curious to know more, you could find in some of the video platforms, you could find the Lego story. There's, of course, an official one. And then you could see in this small movie all the things that happened, right? We started with wooden toys, then the factory got burned, then it was rebuilt, then it got burned again. And all this drama behind the company,
Okay.
but the tenacity and the creativity from the founder. Then they discovered plastic, and they were curious about the power of plastic, creating a new toy. And they were very curious on creating a system for playing, because if you look at the rest of the toys, they're great in isolation. They don't work together. So the founder had a dream of creating a system in play, and that's how everything started. And then we started to expand. We have now facilities and manufacturing locations around the world. We just announced our two new ones to strengthen or bolster our presence around the world. We just started the construction of our new manufacturing facility in Vietnam. That will be our second in Asia. We have in China one location, now we have Vietnam. And we are going to support also the Americas with a new factory coming into the U.S. in a couple of years. So it's been great. In terms of retail, we have plus 800 stores around the world. We have stores in more than 80 countries. Many of them are owned and operated by us, but also we have many stores with our partners that they open also Lego certified stores. And then we have presence with great other retailers, in department and grocery. And
the wholesale business, big
exactly.
wholesale business.
Yes.
Exactly. Amazing.
I've been to your flagship on Fifth Avenue in New York City. It's just a wonderful store.
I love that store. It's our first from what we call the retailtainment concept. And it's a concept that we just launched through that store to provide more play, to bring more digital, to have different kind of experience and keep evolving. And that's part of the culture of the company, innovation and keep evolution. But actually, now that we're in Barcelona, if you haven't seen it, we have not far away from the World Retail Congress a store in Barcelona.
Oh, we walked by it yesterday on the tour, actually. We were looking at it. Yeah.
Beautiful. We celebrate Gaudí. We actually have, Parkwell. We have the Sagrada Familia Cathedral. We have many other icons that will celebrate the Catalan culture and Spain. So it's a fantastic store. It's one of my favorites. That store really, really has a lot of love from our fans too. Just like New York.
You've worked in innovation, retail experience for quite some time. Maybe we could just start very kind of basically. Like, what is your definition of innovation, or what does innovation mean for the Lego Group?
Yeah, I've been, of course, working with retail for 25 years, so I will tell you the evolved version, right? Because in the past, maybe that's a good inspiration for our listeners, that innovation sometimes, it's only a good idea. We have a good idea and we think we're going to innovate, but actually, the evolution of a good idea to innovation is when you actually have a purpose, when you have a problem that you are solving, when you are linking to a need. So I think, my personal journey and evolution has been from just brainstorming to get good ideas that actually at the end we have great ideas, to now look into what are customers needing, what are the shoppers missing, what can we do better in our stores, and then innovate through that. So that will be my innovation. Probably the additional take that I will give to that is, now I don't see that it's enough that, you could solve a problem, you could solve a challenge, but I don't think, at least when I look at innovation, I don't think that is the end or the final step. What my team and we are doing is we're looking into a roadmap on how that innovation will stay fresh, will stay relevant, will still be feel as new for a period of time. Because we know that from day one, when we launch it, it's going to be great, but there's going to be tweaks. We need to learn. We need to fastly iterate. So if we just think that the project is done on day one, I think that's a miss. We need to think that actually day one is an important milestone, but not the end date. And then when we develop innovations, we look into how does this look in the next months? How does that look in the next years? And we actually already from the beginning deliberately put milestones. In year one, this is how it's going to look. 1.5, 2 years, this is the evolution. And that has helped us to make our innovations more relevant, meaningful, and to scale a more mature and evolved version than just what we developed for day one.
It's hard enough to figure out where technology is going, where customers' needs and wants are going to go. But there's also, I'm sure you've heard this famous quote from Henry Ford about, if I had asked customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, not, a whole new way. So, so sometimes it's great to think about, ask the customers, figure out a problem and solve it. But sometimes customers can't express what they want in a way that actually leads to tangible innovation. Do you see that as a challenge? And if so, how do you accommodate that in your roadmap?
A great point, because when we just look into insights, we are answering to a sentence, right? We're answering to data, right. And in nowadays, there's many factors, and there's the ones that you can predict and the ones that you need to be ready that you cannot predict. So when we look into innovation, we actually look into 3 areas. One is what customers want, as you're saying. But we also want to look into what are the latest trends from the market. Are shoppers, using their phone in the stores? How do they feel about contactless experience? And when you were not comfortable touching something. But we also use a third factor. So if you look into this, chart with 3 circles, we're looking into the sweet spot in the middle where you have data in one side, you have trends and movements that you will see happening in the industry, not only in toys, it could be pet food, luxury, whatever. But then we have a third one that is very important, and is the vision, right? And as you were saying, that quote from Ford, probably he used the data to know that people were ready to change and have a new way to transport, but he had the vision. Some people call it the gut feeling, the hunch on how to do that. And in our projects, we actually use that a lot. And some of the wording that I use with our leadership team when we look into a new experience is, instead of saying, will you do this? Will you agree to doing that? Very often we use the word, will you bet in this idea? Will you agree that, we try this?
Oh, that's interesting. And what are the big bets we're making around any particular innovation?
Because by saying bet, first of all, we know that it could work. We could win, but actually not, right? And so using like bets or proposal is a good way to also engage them and take them in the journey on the risk that we're taking together.
Right, because it's not such a black and white, one time, or all or nothing kind of proposition.
Yes.
Let's talk about the difference in your mind over your experience both at Lego and in your career between innovation and transformation. Is it a spectrum, or are they different things? How do you view that?
Yes, it's a good question. So I'll tell you my answer and then how we work with that, because we actually have a model that works on that one. So I think my personal take is that innovation it's something that is new to you. You've never seen it before, but also has a new purpose, and it will give you the wow. It will make you, have that expression of, surprise. Mm-hmm. Where transformation is actually changing or adapting, or a mix between all of those to make sure that you meet the next vision and the next problem. So I think I will see them as two different paths, because definitely just because you're innovating, you are not transforming. Or just because you're transforming, It doesn't mean that you're innovating. So they're both different. Mm-hmm. Probably innovation, I will see it more on the experience, on the way we present to our consumers, our experiences. Where transformation will be probably more on the business models or the operation. Mm-hmm. Now, how do we do that in my team and in our company? We actually have a framework that has 3 spectrums. Maybe the words are different, but it's similar to that. So first of all, we have the bottom layer called renovation. We don't need to change everything all the time, right? Maybe as I was saying, a small tweak, just like your phones get an update every certain period of time. Right. We will evolve our platforms, our experiences. So that will be renovation. Then we have innovation in the center, probably the one where we put our biggest focus. That will be nice, fast, agile, productive innovations that we could do. It could mean something that we got inspired from other categories or from things that we've done in the past. And that's probably where we will put our biggest focus. And then we have on the very, very top what we call the blue sky ideas. This is something that you've never seen before anywhere else, not from Lego, not from any other retailer. And you will see that from us for the first time. And actually, it will help us to keep building on the innovation value proposition that the Lego brick has.
You're subject matter expert, I would say, in innovation. When you look around, whether it's retail companies or others, what do you say companies typically get wrong about their approach? You've articulated quite well your approach and how you see your Venn circles or intersecting circles. But when you look around, is there any commonalities about what you see could be a contributor to failure in innovation?
Yeah, first of all, I think there's 2 things. Maybe if you allow me to do 2, I'll give you the bonus with 2. So one is that I think we are a little bit scared about failing. I don't think it's okay telling to your managers, to your board, to whoever support you, look, didn't work, sorry, we need to take it down. Mm-hmm. And just accepting that's even part of the journey, right? You're not going to have everything standing forever. Not even, the old buildings. Things need to go down and to live. So that's accepting failure. I think it's an important one, and it's part of the learnings. The other one will be having a purpose to what retailers are doing. I've seen many stores with great experiences, but when you really think, are shoppers going to remember this from a store visit? How does this fit with your brand? And maybe just making an example, just imagine, coming to a shoe store that is full of, dark spaces and all that. Is it really helping you to buy those shoes, or you are just enjoying the moment? And there's many examples of that, and technology is one of those places where I see a lot of technology with no purpose. You've been almost forced to try an experience or to get out your phone for something that I don't understand, and I cannot relate that to the brand. So purpose is probably one of the questions that we should ask. What is this for? But, we should avoid the technology showroom that we're starting to see in some places. Like, personally, I feel lonely in a store with no associates. And I'm happy with the fast checkouts and, reduced friction on that. But I love, getting the experts, maybe because I work in retail, but, having a conversation with someone, what would you recommend? Going to a restaurant and ask, what will you eat? If you have your aunt coming and visit you in Barcelona, what will she eat? Things like that. You establish a relationship. And now technology, it's almost taking away or reducing that relationship that you could build with the associates. And at least I could tell you from the Lego stores, one of our biggest and if not the strongest, values that we have is our store associates. They're fantastic. During COVID, they engaged with all our guests and shoppers, with a smile. Even they were wearing a face mask. They were smiling behind. We also know that they lean down and play with children any age and help them to have a great moment. They help parents to decide what is the best, toy for that afternoon or for that birthday. can you do that through a chatbot? Probably some, but it's not as engaging. Is that what, coming back to the purpose, is that, are you going to visit that store more because they had a fast chatbot that answered your questions? Not sure yet.
Right.
We're ready for that as humans.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I say this in my book, where one of my least favorite things is where retailers say, we're a technology company. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not a technology company. That's just a thing to say, to maybe investors like this idea that we're fully embracing technology. But I always say, no consumer buys technology. You're buying, a joyous moment, or you're buying, you're trying to get some sort of feeling or sense ultimately. Technology can be hugely important in making that possible, or making it faster or better or whatever, but this kind of chasing technology for technology's sake, I'm not sure there are really any companies that can point to lasting success based on that philosophy. But
now that you mentioned philosophy, I'll share with you the way I speak, at least internally, in with my colleagues and in the company about retail. I consider that all the Lego stores are theaters, right? We have more than 800 theaters around the world. And coming back to the technology part, I have never heard anybody saying, I cried this evening on that show because the lighting was perfect, or the toilets had warm water, or the velvet in the seats were amazing. Yeah. People cry because the Phantom of the Opera made them, bring their tear down.
Right.
They posted 20 pictures because Bruce Springsteen was singing to them, or because, they could remember a memory. That is actually the philosophy behind retail. So technology, it should be like that. I don't know if the sound system is made, in Asia or America.
Yeah.
I don't know if your lights are new or they're 20 years old. However, I will remember is the experience. But this is the but. If the seats are bad, if the water is cold, or the sound is terrible, then you put friction into the experience. And that's the way I think on technology.
Yeah.
It's helping us to make the theater be better for the place that all the Lego stores and marketing and my team are preparing.
Sure. So one thing, you guys obviously have got a great track record of innovation. One of the things that comes up a lot in, I think, both Michael and my consulting work, but also comes up on the podcast a lot, is how do you create a sense of urgency for innovation? So during the COVID times, a lot of people were sort of high-fiving themselves about how much innovation occurred. But that was sort of like, if we don't innovate, we're dead kind of crisis mentality, right? You're forced to do it by circumstances, as opposed to lots of retailers have gotten themselves into trouble over a long period of time by not innovating, because it can always be, we'll do it tomorrow, we'll do it a year from now, we'll do it when we get past putting on our new point of sale system or whatever. So how does Lego create that sense of urgency? Because it's not like you're doing this because you're about to go out of business, and if you don't, you're filing for bankruptcy and saving the company from extinction.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that last comment, because that's probably in the culture. We've been through also bad times. Mm-hmm. Beginning of the 2000s, we were really, down in financial situation. However, we've seen the benefit of innovation, and that's part of the culture in the company, where we actually see that innovating fast, answering to the passion points that our customers have. Playing, in the way kids are playing today, we need to react fast. So having that innovation or innovative mindset in retail, it's been very key for us. And we react fast. Probably the way we approach that in my team and with everyone that works with us is that we innovate more by doing than by thinking about it. Of course, we prepare the right PowerPoints and the right documents, but we learn more just by trying different things. We sometimes build, we're going to do something in retail, we build quickly a mock-up in foam board or in cardboard, and then we find out that the height was not correct. So discovering that 6 months later, after you do drawings, you receive the first sample from a factory. It is complicated, but acting fast, doing this in cardboard, getting information. However, we could see that in the good times, we started to be creative and we put more processes, and we need to put more documentation. So it is probably being agile, being fast and trying to just have the right, documentation that is required for that without overdoing it.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's embedded in the culture, kind of this culture of experimentation, and then because you've seen the rewards from it, that's kind of keeps the momentum. It's a self-fulfilling kind of model. So
plus maybe building on the culture that we have in the leadership team and in each of us, that trying our best and putting our best effort. As long as we learn, it's okay to have a failure and make sure that we iterate everything, because I know in some companies this is quite difficult, right? Everything needs to work perfectly from day one. So that's, of course, we have a big motto that I don't know if you heard before. In Lego, we say only the best is good enough. But sometimes we need to think what is the right thing for that moment, what is made for purpose, and what is not.
Right. Now, are you going to be on stage, or are you coming off stage?
Coming out, we had a great session this morning, a very interesting session, because through different, that's the great thing when you come to congresses. You network, you meet people.
Right.
I met in the last congresses 3 fantastic peers, and I will call them friends now. A person, Alex Garner from Zappos, who brings the psychology of shopper. He's an expert on that. We have Elizabeth Oates, also from Ulta, who is head of research and insights. And then we have Elsa Pedro, who is looking into data in Mars. So you have these 4 companies, Mars, Ulta, Zappos, and Lego, coming together. And we had a lot of conversations online. That's something that I will encourage everybody. Network with other people. Elsa reached to us on LinkedIn, very cool, just asking us if we wanted to talk. And then we're starting to build a conversation, a movement. And the 4 of us believe on the importance of humanizing retail. Want to make sure that we all believe that we should not look only into data and retail. We should look into everyone as a profile, or as a number, or as the data point. We need to make sure that we have individuals, and we spoke today about different cases on how we see people differently, but at the end, people is at the center. And we had a great session, the 4 of us, talking about data and how we humanize retail and make sure that most of the decisions are data-based, of course, and they're insight-based. But we make sure that we have that human factors. We had a workshop. We also had some fun. I brought some Lego bricks. So everybody had to build a Lego dock in 60 seconds, and it was amazing. Everybody had the same brief. Everybody had the same number of Lego bricks, and it was great to see that after 60 seconds, everybody thought they had the best dock, and they were amazing, but you could see how different it is. And it was a good example on how we could interpret the data and insights in different ways, even though we probably all have seen a doc before.
Right.
But the expression of that was different, and
So
fantastic session today.
Fantastic. Well, what's next for you, and what's next for Lego? What are you working on? If you can give us a glimpse into the near or longer term future.
Perfect. Yeah, it's exciting times in Lego. Exciting times in general in retail. So we're looking into different areas. So first of all, we are looking to meet and reach to more families and children around the world. And the Lego store is a great place to be closer to them. So we're looking into a couple of new stores that will open this year. So more news to come. Expanding that around the world. In regards to the stores, of course, we are on that journey of bringing more digital to play, bringing more digital to the experience on how we fulfill the requirements that shoppers would have and the expectations. And then the other part is how do we elevate more even so we have focused on the experience. We want to do that even more. We know that today winning in retail, it's making sure that we provide a fantastic or best-in-class brand experience, right? We're the Lego store. So if you're looking for the best place to know how Lego is or what Lego is about, it should be in our theaters.
I mean, it's interesting because it's a high bar that you've set, right? So I think both amongst internally, and I feel with you and the customers as well. So innovation has to really be on point, right? Iterative, but pretty on point, right?
And probably one of the best ways just to close on that comment to do it is that most of the experiences that we develop, they are not intentionally created to be self-explanatory or self-maintained. We actually build most of our experience with the intention on making this as an interaction with our store associates.
Oh, interesting.
So we will have training for them to facilitate the experience. They love engaging with our shoppers and consumers, but we really put a lot of focus on having everything manned, because we know that the moment our shoppers interact with our associates, we establish a relationship, we'll get feedback, we'll get better relationships, and then you create that link. So then you will become your favorite store. You know who you're talking to. You know that he's passionate or she's passionate about Lego, and we build that relationship. So experiences are almost enablers of or icebreakers for store interaction.
So fascinating and interesting and insightful.
Yeah,
I feel like we could talk for hours, but obviously we'll have to let you go at some point. But thanks so much, Martin, for joining us. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, and enjoy the rest of the World Retail Congress.
Fantastic. And I'm definitely excited to be in World Retail. A lot of buzz, a lot of conversations on retail.
Yeah.
So definitely, I think if you love shopping, if you love retail, I think the best is just about to come.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Apple, Spotify, your favorite podcast platform, so you can catch up with all our great interviews, including Judith McKenna, President, International, Walmart. New episodes of Season 6, presented by our friends at Market Dial, will show up each and every Tuesday. And be sure and tell your friends and colleagues in the retail industry all about us.
And I'm Steve Dennis, author of the best-selling book, Remarkable Retail: How to Win and Keep Customers in the Age of Disruption. You can learn more about me, my consulting, and keynote speaking at stephenpdennis.com.
And I'm Michael LeBlanc, consumer retail growth consultant, keynote speaker, and producer, and host of a series of retail trade podcasts, including this one. You can learn even more about me on LinkedIn, and you can see both of us at the Lead Innovation Summit in July, live on stage in New York with our friend of the pod, Simeon Siegel from BMO. Until then, safe travels, everyone.